I'm going to describe what it was like a few months ago to run the 100-mile race in the Himalaya. The dumbest thing I did, but I survived, and here to prove it. I started running when I was 9 years old, really to learn my states and capitals. My mom and I needed time just one-on-one so I could recite all my states, all my capitals. And that started me running 3 miles a night and all through growing up. I ran track in high school and then marathons during Stanford. I started doing ultra marathons, which is technically more than 26.2 miles during grad school. So 50 Ks, 100 Ks, and then the dreaded 100-mile. So Himalaya 100 was all Mike Nuttall's fault. He sent me an email a little more than a year ago. He's a running partner from Portola Valley, and he said he just signed up for this race, and he's 65. So I said, shit, I've got to do it. It turned out that I just decided to leave Twitter, and I was taking my current job at Andreessen Horowitz, and the race turned out to fall during that vacation time. And this is when people usually screw around, I hear, but instead I had 3 weeks, and those were 3 weeks I was in India. All I knew about the race, 100-mile race. There were 33,000 feet of climbing at 11,000 feet of altitude over 5 days. And it was insane. And didn't really train. All I knew was in the Himalaya, along the border of India and Nepal. Left leg was in Nepal, right leg was in India, and there were border guards all along the way. You had to make sure you verified your passport and synced with your race number. It was bizarre. Day one was 24 miles, and there were 10,000 feet of climbing. Because you're out there so long, I crested this little baby hill and saw that thing up there, and that was where I needed to get after traversing all of that. This was day 2, 20 miles. It was about 12,000 feet that day, and a lot of it was just unrunnable, like this. And this is all thanks to my camera that I took in my pocket the whole time, but screwed. Day 3 was technically the Mount Everest Marathon. It was really 28 miles. I don't think their GPS worked so well out there. There were people really pissed about that extra 1.8 miles. But made it to the next town. Day 4 was 13 miles, and I don't know when I ever thought that a half marathon was easy, but that day it seemed like the best thing in the world. And through water, but in hot conditions. Day 5 was a mere 17 miles, and making it to the finish, realized that running really wasn't the hardest part of the Himalaya trek, but there are a few things that were. One was the food. I love Indian food. Who likes Indian food here? But do you love it for breakfast and dinner every night before a race? I ate white rice, potatoes, and naan, and if you were lucky, there was ketchup. And that was the aid stations. I was stoked to have aid stations, but if you like boiled potatoes, bananas that look like they were run over by a truck, and water. And those 3 things can get you through 100 miles. I'm still putting the weight back on. The packing predicament was quite hard. You would be with sunscreen in the morning, and then you would be in 5 layers of fleece, colder than at dinner tonight, every single evening, and sleeping in a measly sleeping bag if you were lucky. The other things that were hard, warm, really bad beer. Luckily, a few years ago at Foo, they gave out, as a swag item, a flask, and I filled that with Patron before I left, and I nursed it every night a little bit, and I didn't share. So thank you. That was the best item yet. Another hard part, there were no showers until day 4. I think that sums it up. I don't need to say anything else. And another hard part was just being so sore. You never wanted to wake up the next morning and actually have to run again. I don't think I've ever dealt with that sort of pain, but you knew you had to go on. There were also some very, very awesome parts. The sunsets were amazing. At one part in the race, you could see 4 of the 5 tallest mountains in the world. And being so far away from anything that plugged in was a feeling that I don't think any of us will ever really get again. Or I'd never had that. Coming through the chute after 18 hours and 47 minutes, I'd finished, best feeling in the world. Turns out I was the first female. And thank you. And I had won the 2012 Himalaya Marathon. Or Monday. Yeah.